We are at Finovate London in Europe, and I am Alex Pugh, the reporter at FinTech Futures. I'm talking to Olivier Guilaumond. He's the Global Head of Innovation Labs and FinTechs at ING. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do there and introduce yourself for us?
Of course. You just mentioned Olivier Guilaumond, Head of FinTechs and Labs at ING. So what that means is that basically my teams are looking into FinTech partnerships, how we can partner with FinTechs to accelerate our agenda across all business units and countries. And also, we have several labs around the world, actually 4, 2 in London and in Belgium, where we are testing partnership with FinTechs in a very specific vehicle. And then 2 in Amsterdam and Singapore, where we are creating our own FinTechs, incubating the new business of tomorrow for ING and its clients.
First question. You're speaking on a panel about what incumbents need to do to achieve digital acceleration. What's your take on how incumbents are approaching digital transformation? Are they looking to take it on in-house, or are they forging partnerships to develop these innovations?
I think they need to do both. At least that's what we as ING we think, right? So for us, we have a very clear signal that it's reuse before buy or partner before build. So we want to build a scalable tech platform that each of our unit can actually rely upon and use. And the best way to do it is to partner when there is something in the market that actually fits exactly what we're looking for, provided that they can actually integrate into the ING proposition, right? So for us, that's really the starting point. If we cannot find it, then we can build it. But that's really, let's say the very logical sequencing, and that's the right order. Hence we have multiple partnerships around the world because we are abiding with this kind of rule. But we still are building, especially the thing which is really specific and differentiating. But for anything else, if there is a partner out there, this is where we want to go.
Great. So rather than build from scratch, seek out partners that are already doing
Seek out partnerships and do the 10 to 20% that really make a difference for us. That's something that we want to own the IP, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
But the way we propose the entire proposition is obviously with the best blend that we have.
Great. So do you think incumbents are competing or collaborating more with FinTechs in the space? Would you say there's more collaboration or more competition? And do you think either or is the best thing for the space? Do you think collaboration is better for the space or competition is better for the space?
Well, I think it has evolved. I think we have been in this innovation space for quite some time. And at the beginning of the FinTech, even though we believe that ING was the first FinTech or launched the first FinTech 20 years ago with ING Direct, the real FinTech world really came to shape maybe 10 years ago and 8 years ago. Yeah. And at the beginning, I think all those new companies were ready to take on against incumbents, right? So really going for competition. And what we saw is that the very, very large minority found it very expensive and difficult to build a direct model, if you will. So what we have seen happening as a big wave for the last, let's say, 5 years is that people moving from direct model to B2B2B or B2B2C. So in a sense, partnering with incumbents because it's just easier, cheaper to go to the market actually. So collaboration has really taken over. So there's always be some competition. So very specific fintechs which are highly successful and scaling fast, which is great. But the 99% of the case, it will be around partnering.
So getting things done requires working together.
Absolutely. I think there is a win-win-win situation for everyone. It's a win for the fintech because they get access to market at a much cheaper cost. It's a great win for the banks because they have access to talents, to very granular customer-oriented propositions with the right technology. And the big win is for the end customer, which is obviously the reason why we're doing this, is to make sure that he or she gets the perfect service, very granular, at the right time with the right experience. And that's obviously a great situation for the entire industry.
Great. So do you expect more mergers and acquisitions activity this year with the drive to keep up with the digital change that is progressing at the time, at the moment?
I think what we saw last year was a record year in terms of M&A and investment in the fintech space. I think $1 of $5 in the world were investing in fintech. So that's massive.
That's a lot.
And there is no reason to believe that it's going to change. And I think a lot of the banks are investment arm. So I think if you look at M&A in terms of investment, I think the investment will be there. Now, M&A in terms of buying to become an owner, that's going to be, you see differences depending on the US and Europe, different models. Some banks are more in the business of buying, Some banks are more in business of minority investing,
Yeah.
but there is no deny that the amount of money in that space, it's just massive and will continue to grow. No question.
Lots of cash flying around.
Yeah. And the cash, it's at the moment, it's not. The cash is not the problem at the moment.
Yeah.
The problem is more understanding where to invest and what for and what value you're going to get from it, right? So that's for us as ING always the question: what's a strategic return on your investment? Whether it's via your ING Ventures or via our own funding within the bank, what is it that's going to bring to our customers, to ING, and that's the reason for us to invest. And then we can decide if it's an M&A operation, it's a minority investment, it's just a cultural partnership, or a combination. But there is no deny that there is probably, a very large amount of money available for investment in that space.
It's a good problem to have.
Investment is not equal to value, So valuation is always the question, is the valuation a realistic valuation or is it just more a consequence of a bubble effect? So for us, we only look into real value, and on the back of that, we make our investment. So we don't look too much into the valuation of today, but more really, what's the strategic fit to what we as ING and our clients are willing to achieve.
Great. So one of the big hurdles for incumbents is obviously sort of legacy thinking, legacy systems. They can be quite sort of rigid and inflexible. How can firms, large firms particularly, look to sort of overcome this inflexibility? How can they become more agile, if you like?
Yeah, it's a great question. There are multiple answers to that, right? So I think first, legacy thinking. I think this is where culture is important.
Yep.
So we as ING, we're extremely focused on making sure that we capitalize on the DNA of our employees. I think we have that chance to have really entrepreneurial DNA by design within ING. I think that's really ingrained in who we are, also historically speaking, etc. But we should supercharge that with the right method and tooling. And that's what, as ING Neo, where we combine our innovation activities, we focus on to make sure that we keep on learning and refining the way we want to innovate at scale, together with our colleagues as a total company. So that's really about the DNA. And it goes around the thinking to make sure that we always structured thinking, customer-centric, evidence-based. So those are the things which we feel extremely important in order to come to the outcome, which is a superior customer experience, right? So that's really for us very important. So that's for the legacy thinking. For the legacy systems, you're absolutely right. As a bank, we have plenty of legacy, expensive, difficult to maintain legacy system. We basically slow down the ability for us to invest in new products and services. And for that, I think first is to be aware of that problem. That's number one. And number two, we're looking into how we can, let's say, leverage technology of today to making sure that we can build a scalable tech platform that all our businesses can rely upon. So we are, for instance, looking, for us, an important domain to look at is core banking, where we have plenty of legacy across, let's say, different countries. And we're looking to see what are the opportunities of today. So earlier this year, we have invested in a company called Thought Machine. Yep. That is a digital core banking system on the retail side. We have run a proof of concept in Poland using Thought Machine. So for us, it gives us interesting insight to understand what could be our options when our legacy system becomes out of let's say, continuity, if you will.
Yeah.
What I want to say is that also within ING Neo, so within our labs, we have built an amazing venture called Crosslink that exclusively looked at solving that problem. So what it does is inventing a DSL, a domain-specific language that basically, where we're able to define with, let's say, that new language requirements to basically generate a modular application to replace a specific legacy system. It's essentially a software that generates software. Okay. So the way it works is that by using this language, you predefine exactly the requirement that this new application is supposed to do in order to replace a legacy software. And once it has been defined, you click on a button and you generate the entire end-to-end application, including the integration, including the channels. This is something completely amazing. And that's something that we have put live within ING with the sole objective to replace our legacy system one by one. So that is something. So we're looking into inside, we're looking into outside with a view to learn, to understand when we will need to make that change, what are the different options that we have so that we can make the best option.
Cool. Okay, let's wrap up. What technologies would you say are most important for banks to look to utilize at the moment? So you mentioned that writing software. Are there any other new developments you can tell us about at ING that are particularly exciting you?
Completely. So, I mean, not per se very new technology. I think what we have seen is that it's actually making sure that we scale and deliver on the promise of the technology which are already talked about, DLT, machine learning, to really use them at scale with a clear value proposition. So when I look at DLT, what we are working on, for instance, with R3, which is a company which we invested in, which is managing the Corda ecosystem, is how we're going to look at privacy using zero knowledge proof technology. So that's for us, privacy is a very important topic for us, for our clients. And we believe that with the right technology, in this case DLT and Corda, that we have developed within ING jointly with R3, we can solve that problem. So that's one example, right? And there will be more with DLT, how we can use tokenization, how we can use digital native tokenization, how we can use maybe different type of currencies in order to really solve the problem at scale.
Yeah.
The same with machine learning. How can we really use at scale machine learning into really increasing the way we do credit risk assessment, for instance? As a bank, it's massively important, of course. So those are really, let's say, non-technology, but that haven't yet been applied at scale within the entirety of the bank. So that's what I expect to see in a short term. And next to that, everything around, I think, privacy is something which, and cryptography, etc., is something that we really take on.
Yeah.
And maybe lastly, as an example, I think the search is something which also is very interesting. So one of the companies that we have created in our labs, which has been spun out, called SIMAI, technology that really looked into very specifically how you can navigate graph search and how you can use that for the benefit of our user, right? So those are examples of technology that we think are ready to scale and that we are embracing within ING.
We've actually covered SIMAI, I think, in FinTech Futures.
Perfect.
Yeah. That's great. Thanks so much, Olivier.
Pleasure.
Thank you.